This is Leadership in Action, and I'm Mark Stiles, your host. Join me as we delve deep into the passions, expertise, and experiences of Boston area innovators. Sponsored by the Boston chapter of Entrepreneurs Organization, this is Leadership in Action. Hey folks, welcome back. Today's guest is someone I'm excited to interview, and I'm really excited to learn more about her and her leadership style and what she's teaching other people. She has 3 decades of experience in leadership, sales management, coaching, speaking, and training. She led her real estate team to achieve over $500 million in annual sales volume. She's founder, president, and CEO of Mile One Performance Coaching. MaryBeth Gustitus, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. I'm excited to be here.
All right,
Thanks
you
for the
ready?
invite. I'm ready.
You ready to bust the myths? Let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
What is a common misconception about leadership and being an entrepreneur? Go.
Oh, the one that I hear most often from entrepreneurs, and I've struggled with this myself as a serial entrepreneur, is I'm the only one who can do it.
I know what you mean there.
Yeah. It's like a self-imposed leash, right? Where it's, I'm the only one that can do it. So that means we don't hire, we don't leverage, we get stuck in the doing of the job, not the planning and vision of the job and taking it to the next level. I find this one to show up all the time. And I'm sorry if my background goes dark and light, like we're on the dating game or something.
Keeps people paying attention.
Very mysterious.
So let's talk about that. So you're digging in and you're the one who founded it. You're the one who started it. Nobody can do it. Let me just take that. I'll finish it. Let me do it.
Yep. And the mindset can also be that the talk that I hear is, well, by the time I explain it to you, I could have just done it myself. And so what they don't realize is that they're putting, it's kind of like, you know, on the wheels of a car, you've got the governors that keep you from going too fast. It's a self-imposed governor. If we're going to hold on to, I'm the only one that can do it, we literally self-impose a governor on how much we can get done if it's related only to what we know. I find entrepreneurs have an amazing start energy, right? They're good at creating, they're passionate about the doing. And it's kind of like, I say the transition from being a me all-star performer who wants to be a we running a business. It's like the difference between Santa Claus and the elf.
Wow.
Entrepreneurs want to hang on to the elf activities. They like making the toy. They like being they like the doing, but they don't easily transition into the Santa that makes certain that the workshop and all that entails is running at a high level. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. And it's totally not scalable if you're going to try to do it yourself, right? You have a ceiling, you have a maximum capacity, a maximum minutes in the hour, hours in the day, days in the week, weeks in the month. So what do you do?
The first thing you have to do is understand that as an entrepreneur, that's naturally what you're inclined to do. The first step really is awareness, right?
Got it.
That this is going to be something that will hold me back, the governor on the car. Second thing they have to do is realize, do I know how? Do I know how to go from being an elf to a Santa Claus? Because an elf with a great toy that they're great at making needs a different skill set. And so do they possess the skill set? Do they know how to discern if they have the skill set? And do they know where to go find it? And are they committed to doing that?
And where are their weaknesses, and are they vulnerable enough to accept that they actually have weaknesses?
Yeah. And I find for many entrepreneurs, weaknesses, we all have them. We know we have them, but we hide them. Right? We just hide them. And so that's a growth process that I find when I work with entrepreneurs is getting real. We got to get real, and then we got to get right. And that sometimes takes outside influence to help do that.
And it takes the ability to say, I need help.
Yeah.
right? I can't control this by myself. I can't get this
Correct.
to where I want it to be by myself.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
awareness is step one. Okay, I am aware of what I've done. I'm working 120 hours a week. I never see my family. I'm passionate about this. I'm the only one that can do this. But is that true? Can I be replaced in certain places? Right. I'm doing payroll. I'm doing vision. I don't have time to do any marketing.
Mm-hmm. Correct. And what I find oftentimes is that we're all replaceable, right? We're
Mhm.
all replaceable. And what most people, I think, as entrepreneurs, we have a value for freedom. So most people get in the business, they want
Right.
freedom, right? And then they put themselves in a situation where they're anything but free
Right.
because it's still reliant on what their hands can physically do. It's reliant on being held back for fear of hiring the wrong person, and then or making the right person the wrong person by not knowing how to lead them. Um, Oftentimes, I find people hire either out of pain when it's gotten to the point. It's like, the straw in the camel's back. It's like falling. It's gonna break at any moment, and they just hire out of pain. They take the first body that's half breathing, and they give them a job,
Mm,
or they hire someone because they feel a connection, which generally means you're hiring yourself, which is disastrous.
right.
So there needs to be it's an art and a science to building a team. And when you build an organization and you build a team as an entrepreneur, you need to think of the company as one brain, one entity. And all the people that serve on that team have to serve a different function so that when it comes together, it acts as one unit. Does that make sense?
One mastermind, right?
One
And
mastermind.
it's not the only the mind of the entrepreneur. It's not simply that mind and attaching on. It's coming together as one.
Absolutely. The entrepreneur generally has a lot of blind spots. We have a lot of blind spots
Mm,
where we can only sort of see the possibility. That's what makes us entrepreneurs. We're optimistic. We get excited about possibility. We love change. We love creativity. That has a massive um, kind of breeding ground for blind spot,
right.
process, procedure, detail, execution. And so one of the things that I do with people is to build the team based on using a tool like a behavioral assessments, where we say there's drivers and there's influencers and there's support and then there's detail. And you need all four of those present for a leadership team to high function.
And nobody's comfortable being in all of those roles all of the time. It's virtually impossible.
No, it is absolutely virtually impossible. And when someone is in that role, if you're in a role that's mismatched to you, you're not aligned to it behaviorally,
Yep.
you could learn how to do it, but you will never do it at a high level and you will not be able to sustain it.
Because you're not comfortable, you don't enjoy it, it doesn't give you purpose.
It also just takes so much more energy
Yeah.
out of you to do the job. I'll give you an example. So I teach people sales skills, right? I led a real estate company. I teach people how to sell real estate, lead generation, that sort of thing. And if I know that someone's behavioral style is maybe a compliant or a support, and I'll say to them, "Hey, did you lead generate today?" And they say, "Absolutely." I could look at them and say, "No, you didn't." And they'll say, "How do you know?" And I said, "Because you look too good." Because that behavior is so far out of your natural behavioral style. When you do it, you're gonna look tired. You're gonna look like you're wiped out because you are.
Because you're doing something that you're not comfortable
You're
doing, so it takes
Yeah,
more energy out of you and you're
yeah,
fatigued. And
correct, correct.
so
And the same is true. Go ahead.
how do you fit those people in the right position so you're not putting that square peg in the round hole?
Well, again, every role, every job in an organization sort of has a behavioral profile that supports it. One thing that we can, and that's a tool. It's not 100% pass fail
Of
because
course.
what we know is stronger than then the behavior profile is what someone's big why for doing it in the first place. Will also determine how long you can do it for.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I've got people that behaviorally shouldn't have done what they've done on paper, but their big why was so strong, it literally pulled them through the exhaustion, through the frustration, through the discomfort. And they were able to do it for a long period of time and get great success. So the first thing is understanding who you are
Mm,
behaviorally.
mm.
That's not a training most people ever get, right?
That
Behaviorally, what am I wired for?
that's the self-awareness too that people resist so desperately too, right?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
think they understand themselves. They're quote faking to make it, right? Fake it to make it, or
Mm.
square peg round hole. But to sit back and say, you know what, this isn't comfortable. This is not in my personality. This is not in my makeup. To be
Mhm.
able to admit that and be aware of it is it's a maturation that some of us never get
Yeah.
to, right?
Well, I think it's also just, was it ever introduced to
Right,
someone as an option? It wasn't until I knew it, I didn't know it, right?
right,
And
exactly.
so when we look at behavior profiles, I truly believe that every person has a superpower. And I believe that every person has a kryptonite.
Mm,
And so when we look at hiring for roles in the organization, when you match someone's superpower to the job, success is, I mean, just you got it. You got
right.
it. When we hire people whose the requirement of the job is actually their kryptonite, that's where there's suffering. That's where there's burnout. That's where there's dissatisfaction, loss of, not feeling fulfilled,
Mm,
that sort of thing. So when we look at hiring and we look at building teams and building organizations, it first starts with you. What's your superpower? What's your kryptonite? How do you know? And then what needs to be filled in around you such that all the needs of the organization are filled. And when it's filled with people in their superpower in each role, man, you have a team that is unbeatable.
how do you scratch?
Unbeatable.
How do you scratch into that though? How do you figure out those superpowers and those kryptonites to stay away from?
So there's many different ways to do it. The one that I typically will use is it's called the DISC,
Okay.
DISC. There's Myers-Briggs, there's all kinds of behavioral assessments. I will caution you that taking something online without having someone validate it,
Mm,
it may or may not be accurate,
right. It's like
right?
Zillow.
Like, oh, don't even swear at me on this podcast, use that language. Yes, it's like, like
Well, Zillow said,
Zillow said, right? Zillow said, and so it's really about having a good conversation
mm,
around what the assessment shows to validate, is this in fact true or not true? Just taking the assessment itself might be like a party trick,
right.
right? Doing it in conjunction with a conversation with someone that can help you discern what's what's really there for you and not will make all the difference.
And explaining it to you, right? Explaining the differences and working through those things. So somebody has taken the disc analysis, they determine that maybe they're an SC or they're a DI or
Mhm.
they're a random combination of the two. Then do you look at that organizational chart and say, what are you doing over here with the personality
Mhm.
type that should be over here?
Mhm. Yep. The first thing that we do is we plot. So if I were coming in, let's just say to your
Yeah.
organization, I would literally have everyone on your team take the assessment.
Yeah.
We would then meet as a team and we would plot everyone on the wheel, basically, which is think of it like one big brain. And we would easily see this is where your organization is very strong. This is the opportunity. This is what's not being touched at all. It gives us a lot of insight in terms of, um, are we covering all four of those, um, think of it like facets of the business, right?
Yeah.
The driver, the visionary, the support role, and then the compliance. And so that's kind of how we would use it in a on a leadership team perspective. it's amazing when I've used this with groups, what you find out. And generally, when you have a leader that hired out of pain or likeness, they're all on one section.
Right.
It's like a canoe that has all the weight on one side. And you're like, man, you're one wave away from going under.
Right.
You're one bad thing away, and your team doesn't even know it's coming.
Because you don't have that holistic brain you were talking about, that
You don't
mastermind.
have the vision. You don't have a vision. You don't have as much clarity around the business, in the business, as you would if you had all of those pieces lined up.
So let's ask you about the self-helpers right out there, the do-it-yourselfers who are hearing this. So where would they get some resources around starting there? I mean, the one book that I read, the E-Myth, that started it all for me. And that was no looking back. I said to myself, okay, I get it. This is me. Where do we go? And we've evolved through that, and the disc and the team and the EOS. Where do you recommend somebody who's in the position of the doer, the technician, the visionary that says all hats? Where do they start? Coach?
Oh, they're so well. I think for sure a coach is one, right? Because because everyone's situation is unique. And a good coach will help you find, well, what's the best resource for you based on where you're at and who you are.
Right.
For some, I might say go right to disc. For others, I might say, there's books I would recommend. Dysfunctions of a Team is one of my favorites. 5 Dysfunctions of a Team.
5 Dysfunctions of a Team.
5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Leoncini. I do all kinds of work with organizations just around that concept.
And what's that concept?
So the concept is that there are 5 layers to make a team high functioning. And the long and short of it is each step builds on the step before. And the very first step in the team being, and this is where we see it go wrong most of the time, is lack of trust within the team. And that means vulnerability, lack of vulnerability. So being able to say, I don't understand. I don't agree. Can you help me? It's a lack of being willing to put yourself out there. And if we don't have lack of trust, we're not able to move on to the second step, which is conflict. They have fear of conflict. The fact of the matter is, teams, if your team is coming to you and saying everything is great, and they're shaking their head and they're nodding in agreement, 9 times out of 10, you can bet there's a meeting after the meeting, right? You can bet that they're telling you what you want to hear and they're not telling you the truth. And I see that result in a lot of goals set, a lot of plans made, and not a lot of execution.
Right.
And so that's just a great book. I've only given you 2 of the steps, but that's a great book for someone that's just saying, let me understand the dynamics, right, of my team and maybe how it needs to function. So the first is definitely, hire a coach, because they will be able to tell you, they'll dive in a little bit with you first.
So let's talk about that for a second, because now you're talking about the mindset of this do-it-yourselfer, right? So what's the ROI? How do I get my head around this? When am I going to be ready? It still comes back to that self-awareness. I could do it better myself. Who needs a coach? I'll just read another book. Or at what point is that jumping off point of, okay, I need to invest in my business?
Again, it's going to be different for everyone. I would say day one is always a good time. And not just because I am a coach, but because I have had the experience myself of years of being coached, that when you are starting something, we are all at a place, there's the stair steps of learning, right? And the first stop is unconscious incompetence.
Right.
And that's the I don't know what I don't know phase. And so when we try to solve a problem that we don't even know we have by ourselves, can you see where that could go wrong?
Yeah. You're not even seeing the problem at that point.
And the problem you name is the problem you'll solve. And what I see is people are naming the wrong problem. They're spending all this time, all this energy, and they're naming the wrong problem. And the truth is, usually the problem is us.
Right.
as the
Always.
entrepreneur. Yeah.
Always. And we're hiding it, right? We know
Yeah.
it, hiding it. We'll fight through it. We'll grind through it,
Yeah.
but we're not going to admit it.
Well, and I don't know, I guess I don't know the actual statistic. Maybe you do. What's the failure rate on an entrepreneur?
Yeah. I mean, they say it all the time, right? 1 in 5 businesses survive the first year. And then there's another return within the first 5 years that is large.
And I know it's different industry to industry. I can tell you in real estate, the numbers are, it's gross. It's a gross number, but it truly is. About 70 to 80% will fail in the first 2 years.
Right.
7 to 8 out of 10 people that started it with hopes and dreams and goals and energy and excitement will fail in 2 years. And here's why. There's a natural process we go through. Whenever we try to go from something that we know, right? We all have this sort of, think of it like a lid. Sometimes you can even almost feel it. Have you ever felt that where you're like, I'm doing all I know to do and it's not enough?
Mm-hmm.
And you can almost feel like this pressure that comes on us that says, I don't know what to do. I'm doing everything I know how. We call that living in entrepreneurial mode. That's where we generally want to live as entrepreneurs. It means we bring excitement, enthusiasm, energy, right? We bring all of this stuff and we do what we believe to be true. And then that lid comes on us that says it's not working. We have 3 choices. Choice number 1 is we can hold there. I can stay, right? And that means I'm going to accept whatever results I'm getting. It might not be what I wanted. Good's good enough. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'll lower my expectations. I'll lower my my goals. I'll lower my standards for what I wanted for my life because good's good enough. So that's option number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Option number 2 is fold. I'm just going to quit. And that's where you see in my business, right? 7, 8 out of 10, that's what they're going to do. They're going to fold. Entrepreneurs, in restaurants, the number might be different. In every industry, it might be a little different. But for the people that said, I'm doing everything I know to do, not good enough, I can't live this way, I'm going to quit. The third option is to rise. And the way that we rise is to do a few things. First thing we do is we say, we define the goal. We look at a model and system that support what it is that we want to do. Who's done it before? What did they do? If I want to make a chocolate cake, why wouldn't I just go find a recipe of the best chocolate cake I can find and use it? Instead of going to my kitchen and spending time, energy, money, resources on trying to figure out how to do it myself. Can't I just find one that's been done at a high level and go make it that way?
Such a great analogy too, right? Because you can almost visualize going in the kitchen. I think I need an egg. I think I need some flour. Mix it up.
Right.
Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. And then I'm 2 years down the road, right?
Yeah.
Still stirring through the business and I'm making ends meet. I'm living a comfortable life. I'm doing okay.
Good enough.
I'm working a little bit more than I really want to. I'm not quite where I visualized I would be here. So double down.
It's good enough.
Double down.
It's good enough.
Invest. Get a coach.
Well, I feel like that's the path, right? To go in. If we don't want to stay,
you need help. You need help
You need
to
help.
accelerate. You can't do it yourself. At the end of the day, you cannot do it alone.
Nope. And again, that's where you could find a model on your own if you choose to.
Yeah.
A model and a system. The secret sauce of that is accountability.
Always.
It's like that delicious sauce on a Big Mac, right?
Yeah.
Delicious. That's the deliciousness of that system is you need accountability. It's the secret sauce. And so when we add accountability to a model and system that's proven, we can predict your success because we know the measures. And so it's focus, models, systems, and accountability. And that's what leads to rise. Most of us that are entrepreneurial, we either lower to that place of good's good enough,
Seller
or
guide.
or we fold. The thing about the chocolate cake analogy is, even if you did it entrepreneurially and you went in your pantry and you just took a wing it approach and you made a delicious cake, could you duplicate it?
Right. Right. You don't have the process. You don't have the recipe. You didn't write it down.
Could you
Wow.
do it again
Right.
and again and again and again? And could you decide, I'm gonna make something, what can I add? How can I make it bigger? How can I make it better? How can I make more? We can't scale it when we don't know the recipe that got us there in the first place.
And is that what you're seeing with real estate professionals for the most part? I know I'd be good at real estate. I've watched HGTV. I know I've bought a couple of
Mm.
houses. I can do this. Is it that they simply don't know how to build that team and build that process? Or is it that maybe you see that they're in the wrong personality type? Like they're trying to call expireds when they would be better off teaching classes and networking through
Mm.
a different medium.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Um, the thing that I often see is that, number one, people's perception of what it
Mm,
is inaccurate when they decide. They've gotten their perspective of what real estate is either by being a consumer, right? I met someone at a house, showed a property. That seemed fun,
mm,
right? I met them at an open house. They had snacks. They drove a nice car. They had nice clothes. That looks nice. It looks, or they're watching HGTV. It always works out on
right.
HGTV,
It's
right?
easy.
So we base our decision to do it without the actual information of what it is required, and are we willing to pay that price? And so real estate is not about houses. Houses are widgets, like anything we're selling, right? The business is actually lead generation. Every business is a lead generation business. I don't care what it is. And if we don't master the art of lead generation, we don't have any customers. And so I think with real estate specifically, Mark, people fall in love with the idea or the perception of what it is. I like houses. I like helping people.
Yeah.
I have nights and weekends. This is a big business like any other. And so I find when people are struggling, it could be that they're in the wrong industry because they didn't know enough about it when they chose it.
But if they're
Right.
good at it, they can't be great without understanding the team, the mastermind, what their weaknesses are, the
Mhm.
kryptonite, if you
The
will.
kryptonite, yeah. And I coach people that are single, agents, solo entrepreneurs, we call them. And I have people that run big teams. And I have people that are not in real estate that I coach. Um, Different levels, different devils.
Yeah. Yep.
And it really is understanding what skills are required of me right now. And when we want to go from a single person operator to a we, building a team, building a company, it's no longer about the product or service. It's now about leadership. It's now about leadership. And I kind of work through a formula that's always in my mind, and it's people plus process less problems equals profit,
I like it.
right? And so it starts with people
Always.
always. And so I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I feel like for an entrepreneur, we know we bet on ourselves or we wouldn't have gone out on our own in the first place.
Yeah.
We bet on ourselves and we bet on our grit and grind and effort and tireless, right, work ethic to build something. We have to understand we all have a lid. We might have different capacities to reach it, but we all have it. And when people want to be a solopreneur, that's certainly their choice and there's no judgment, but there's also no way out.
Right. The trap.
It's a trap. Well, it's kind of like that. If you've read, I'm sure you've read Cash Flow Quadrant by
Oh yeah.
Kiyosaki,
Love it.
right? And it says when you are self-employed, you own the job
Right.
if it's just you, but you still have a job. And when you stop, it stops. And so the mindset of an entrepreneur to get to what they thought it was in the first place, which was freedom, right? Flexibility is why most of us did it, is we got to go to a business, which means I own, others do the job. I don't have that job anymore.
So in that evolution, let's segue back to little MB. So we've
Mm.
learned a lot from you. Let's learn a little bit about you. So where are you from? Where were you raised, MB?
I was born in a little town in New Hampshire, Pelham, New Hampshire. It's right on the border
Oh yeah.
of Massachusetts. Yep. Yep. So I was born in Pelham. I am the youngest of 6 children. So, I don't know if you're from a big family, but basically that means by the time they get to 6, good luck. You're on your own, right?
I'm the youngest of 5, so we are
So you
kids.
get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get it.
Yeah.
Nobody's oohing and ahhing over you when you're the last of 6, right? It's like, that's it.
Yeah. We've been there, done that.
That's
You
right.
could figure it out.
That's right.
So
That's
you
right.
figured it out. So you went through, how did you get to become a coach? Like, give me the evolution from
Oh
high
gosh,
school on.
it's kind of a strange and twisted a little bit tale. I was an entrepreneur as long as I can remember. From my earliest memories,
Cool.
I remember selling rocks from a fish tank. You know, like those pink, they're like little
Yeah.
the teeny ones, like pink and blue and like
Yep.
these fun colors. I found them in somewhere. And I remember setting up a table outside in the driveway and selling rocks to like, what? Who does this? But I was like, these are pretty. I can sell them. So I started selling rocks. And then I started a new business called Pickup Dog Crap before there was actual places to
Oh,
do this. So I went door to door to my neighbors and I said, I'll pick up your dog poop for like $1. And so entrepreneurial spirit has always been alive and well.
wow. Problem solved, right? Nobody likes to pick up their dog poop, but they love to let their dog out so they don't poop in the house. And there's
I didn't
20.
like it either, but
Yeah.
I did like the dollar, right?
Yeah,
I
you
did like
did.
the dollar. And so I've always had that spirit. I did not come from wealth.
Mm,
I did not come from money. As I said, I was the last of 6 in a 3-bedroom little ranch. We had really very little. I didn't have a lot of those things that would traditionally set you up for success, right? I
yeah.
didn't have this solid collegiate education. I didn't have a lot of those things. So I had to make up in work ethic. I started in just sort of, I would always start in an entry level job, service or sales management, and then I would quickly go into management. So I knew early on, God, this leadership thing keeps showing up,
Mm,
right? Even as a young 20 something, I would start out at the front desk and within 6 months, I would be leading a team. So I knew
interesting.
leadership was for me. But then I thought, but working for somebody else isn't. And so in 1998, I got into real estate and I didn't know what that meant. I, like most people, also thought it was HGTV.
Hmm.
Um, and I started my own, I went to work for a large company and started my real estate business. Floundered like most people did. I realized that the reason I got into it, which was wanting freedom and the ability to have freedom, conflicted.
Mm,
And so the first 6 months of my career, I don't think I sold much of anything because I didn't understand some of the fundamental concepts of time management, right? Discipline. I just was in it for the freedom. That got in the way for a little bit.
so the freedom can be intoxicating and actually be a negative, right? Because now you're free. You have no guardrails, but you have no recipe either, right?
I find when I hear, and I coach a lot of people coming in the business, and when I hear, I always ask the question, so what brings you into the business? What
Yeah.
excites you most about it? And they say, I like people, I like houses, and I like to have a free schedule. I go, ooh, accident waiting to happen,
Wrong
right? Like
business.
intervention, right? And I go, intervention time. Um, and so I started in real estate, decided that that was it. I was never going to work for somebody else again, but for myself. And did well. And in 2006, I got a call from Keller Williams. They were just coming to our area. They wanted to start a franchise. People thought we sold paint. Like I'm like, that's Sherman
Right.
Williams, but
Yeah.
okay. And so we started in 2006. Timing's everything. You know, it happened in 2007
Yeah.
and 8 in real estate. And we grew the company to the largest in our market, still there today. It's the number one real estate office in our market, over 250 real estate agents, and so many billions in real estate at this
Yeah.
point. And what I learned in that process that's got me to where I am now is that my true passion, Mark, was in meaningful conversations. Right? My true passion was in coaching. It was in training. It was in inspiring people. It was in motivating people. That was a 10-year breeding ground for me from 2006 to 2016. It was a 10-year breeding ground where I was CEO. Suddenly I'm CEO of this company, right? And
Because
I had
that's
to
what
figure it
happens.
out.
That's what
Yeah.
happens with MB. She starts out somewhere and ends up leading the organization every time.
She's selling colored rocks from a fish tank.
Yeah. Well, you rise, right? You rise to the top
Right.
each time. Can I go back to that first 6 months though? Because that's a
Yeah.
pivotal moment where a lot of people probably start to question, am I in the right industry, right? So you're coaching these people through that first 6 months where, am I in it? I haven't sold anything. Am I doing the right things? I'm supposed to have
Mhm.
freedom, but I'm not doing the right things. What made you realize I'm going to stick it out? I'm still going to do this because I'm going to succeed, or I gotta make a move here and do something different.
I had to surrender. I
Yeah.
had to realize that I got in the business to be my own boss. And that also did not mean that I knew everything. It meant it meant that I earned the right to decide what I would do, but I still had to follow a model.
Mm,
And so I remember the lid I talked about,
yeah.
right? When I see people, we actually call it E to P, the model. And I know that when somebody's first 3 to 6 months, they're going to hit it. And if they don't have the results they wanted, expected, you know, um, they're going to have to make those choices. Luckily, I chose the rise path. I got enrolled in a class. I went from unconscious incompetence, where I didn't know what to do, to, okay, well, now I'm consciously incompetent. Now I realize
Mm.
what I don't know. And then I had to go find training and coaching that was appropriate for what I needed. But it all started with a decision and a commitment, right? And a willingness to say, help me, help me.
So if you, so MB, if you were to go back to that little girl selling the rocks and give her that piece of advice of what would save you time, energy, and emotional drain, what would that advice be?
Oh God, there's so many things I would tell her. So many things I would tell her. I would first tell her to trust yourself. I would tell her that go faster. I would tell her to go faster. I would tell her that your beginning of having no money and having, I wasn't surrounded with conversations around, hey, what college are you going to go to? I was surrounded by people that worked in factories. So the idea of being more just really wasn't present. I would tell her that your beginning doesn't determine your destiny. I would tell her that. I would tell her that your thoughts, your beliefs, your habits, your work ethic does, and you control those. And the last thing I would tell her, which really has been a struggle, is that other people's opinion of you is none of your business.
None of your
And
business.
it's none of your business what other people think. So I would tell her that trust yourself, and what other people think, none of your business. Don't worry about it.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. You know, you could tell people to ignore it, but to say it's none of your business is another way of saying it that is way more impactful.
Yeah, it's none of your business. And I feel like that I made it my business more than it needed to be, and that slowed me down. Or it can give you fear, or it can give you limiting beliefs. When I looked around, that was one of the beautiful things I learned with EO is I went and suddenly I'm in a room with these uber successful people from all walks of life. I'm in a forum where everybody is highly educated from amazing schools, have had amazing experiences. And I'm like, gosh, I'm the odd man out. And my journey with EO has helped me to realize that my entire path has gotten me to this point with grit and determination, right? And just commitment and desire, and that I'm worthy of it, as is every other entrepreneur. We don't need to have paper or, certain things to make us feel that we are worthy and deserving and capable and confident. And that's what EO did for me, was it made me say, I've earned my seat at this table. And it allowed me to see the gifts that I could share with other people.
That you could add value to these people that you thought were beyond reach, right? Beyond approach. And you realize not only can I add value to them from where I have been, but they share the same fears and hesitations that I have, and we can work together.
Yeah.
To help each
and
other.
oftentimes what I learned too is when they heard my story, right? When they heard my truth and my journey, and they were like, holy crap, you did all of that and you didn't have all this stuff.
Right.
My God, like that's, so I feel like it's just given me a different perspective and a different awareness around where I belong. And does that make sense, the way I'm saying that?
It totally makes sense. I love it. I love everything about it. Now you're coaching. That's your primary passion now. You're helping people. You seem like you were your first pupil, if you will, when you first made that realization 6 months in that I need a recipe. But you're coaching folks. What are you doing for fun? How are you having that freedom, that balance that you were seeking from the very beginning?
I guess I have a lot of interest. Most of them have to do with being around family and friends. I'm wildly social, right? We've got 2 children, and I've got 2 stepchildren, and I love to be outdoors, kayaking. We have a cute little place on a lake. I love to be out on the water. I love to read. I love to learn. For fun, I became a Reiki practitioner, master practitioner.
What? Tell me
Yep,
about that.
I just, it started selfishly enough. It started with my daughter, who was having some medical problems back in 5 or 6 years ago. And I learned it because I thought it would help her.
Got it.
And so I learned it for my own sort of like to try to help my daughter. And what I learned was I've always believed in energy, And I realized that I had such an opportunity to help people, help them heal, help them gain clarity. So I look at Reiki, honestly, Mark, as just another leg of coaching. I just feel like, weird to say this, but in my mind, I tell myself that I'm a healer of mind, body, and spirit.
I love it.
Right. And so that's where the Reiki came in. And I use it on clients to this day when they may just need to find their own answers and can't relax. They might need, I don't know. It's just something that I find tremendous value. And so I do that for fun.
So for those listeners, including me, who don't really truly know what Reiki is, help me understand what it is. I understand the energy and chi, but how is the actual process?
So the process is, it's a healing modality.
Yeah.
Ancient healing modality from the East. And it is basically energetic healing, where you are channeling a healing source. It goes through the practitioner's hands and into the receiver. And it could be either in person or remote, believe it or not. You don't even
Really?
need to be in the room. You don't even need to be in the room. But it is very, very useful for people that struggle with either physical pain, depression, anxiety, um, just need to relax. I have people that say that have ADHD and they say it feels like, they said it's the only time when my brain can quiet is when I'm actually in the session. So that I learned, I learned kind of selfishly, but also, uh, you know, asked myself, when's the last time I learned something new? And Reiki came to my mind, so I did it.
I love it. I love it. It's like the full gamut. You have the whole thing down.
I am fascinated by behavior. I'm fascinated by people. I love people and I love to help people and I love to see people succeed. And so in addition to Reiki, I've become an NLP master practitioner. That's neuro-linguistic programming. And so that sort of tackles another side of things, right? The unconscious mind, the belief systems that one may have, limiting decisions. So we use those modalities as well in coaching when we butt up against a belief system that's interfering with a goal. So we can do certain things to dive deep, certain things to release, remove, reframe. But it's all about how somebody, what's their mindset. Coaching is more about how you think than what you do.
Wow. So let me ask you this. How would someone get in touch with you? What is the best way to reach you and connect with you?
My cell phone number, I'll give you that to start with.
Yeah.
That's 603-305-3552. You can find me on LinkedIn, MaryBeth, with a MB Gustitus. You'll find me there. You could also find me on Facebook. It's MaryBeth Barrett Gustitus. That's my maiden name. Or you could email me.
Let's do it.
And you can email me at mbmile1@gmail.com.
mbmile1@gmail.com. And that's Mile One
Mile
Coaching.
Mile One. Yep. Correct.
Mile One. I like it.
Mile One.
Got to start at Mile One, right?
Well, when I came up with that name, so Miles stands for motivation, inspiration, leadership, and empowerment. And the one means there's always more to go. So
I love it. MB, thank you so much for sharing. This has been really amazing. And I learned a tremendous amount. I've got a bunch of notes here and books to go back to and wisdom to share. I can't wait to share this with people because I think there's a lot of people sitting in my seat who can't wait to listen to this. So thank you so very much.
You're welcome. And I guess the last thing I'll say to you is I encourage entrepreneurs out there to know that because I coach a lot of them, everybody struggles with the same thing. You don't lack anything. You're enough. You just need some strategies behind you. So don't be afraid to reach out for help. And the resources are out there for you.
And you heard them, folks. MB gave you those. And don't forget, they're in the show notes. So if you're scrambling for a pen, just open up where you're at and click right through. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, MB. That is it, everyone. If you learned something today or laughed, please tell someone about this podcast, share it, and share the love. Thank you again, MB.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's good to spend some time with you today.
And this has been another exciting episode of Leadership in Action. We will see you next time. Leadership in Action is sponsored by the Boston chapter of the Entrepreneurs Organization. As the world's only peer-to-peer network exclusively for entrepreneurs, EO helps transform the lives of those who transform the world.